Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for a few minutes of fun. I'm in a spritzy spray kind of mood today. So I've got some of my usual manila tags, not the Ranger ones, but they are the same as the Ranger ones. I've got some other card that I've cut using this Bigz Die tag and book plates. Not sure whether this is still available any longer. This is Sizzix, Tim Holtz, but you can get, I think, still these thinlets. These are quite fun because it means you can cut out layers of tags and tags with frames in and la 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 la. The advantage of the Bigz Die is that the power of this means I can cut several at a time. And these are just with some offcuts of card that I bought at a knockdown price at some point because they were a weird shape, and some pages from really a very cheap sketchbook. Yeah, that came from a sort of cheapy shop. It claims to be artist quality. I don't know about that. If you're sketching, fine, but I have a feeling it's not the best quality paper in the world, and it'll mean we get different kinds of effects when the sprays hit it. So I'm just going to have a play with what I really enjoy is combining different formulations. So I've got some Distress sprays and I've got Distress Oxide sprays, and on standby I've got a couple of mica stain sprays, because the joy for me is mixing different formulations so that you get translucence of the inks against the chalkiness of the sprays, against sometimes the shimmer of these, and it's mixing and matching those that can give you quite a lot of fun. Oh look, there's all my tag rings also cut, of course, because that's on this one, that's up here, front and back, you get cut in there. Anybody who doesn't know about die cutting, there's a steel cutting blade inside here, so you press it through the die cutting machine in what's called a sandwich with something on top, something on the other side, to press your paper down onto that steel blade, and it cuts out your tag. I haven't decided whether to stick these on. I think I might keep them in the contrasting colour. I think that might be quite fun once this paper is spritzed and sprayed, to have a completely contrasting little ring to go at the top. It'll focus something quite interesting. The alternative obviously would be to stick them down in advance and let them get sprayed with what's going on. So I might do some of one and some of another. I'm about to get ready. Unusually for me, I've decided that I am going to use an underpaper today. So I've got a roll of this drawing paper that comes from the children's section in that certain Swedish furniture store. You get this whole huge roll of paper. Really, I mean, a hopeless quality. It rips, it creases, all of these things, but it's brilliant for an underpaper. So instead of getting my spray box out, which also you can't really see on camera because it's got 3 walls to stop the spray escaping, but it means the light can't get in for you to see what's happening. If I've got some underpaper down, not only will any escaping spray maybe create nice things underneath, it will also protect my work surface. So I'm going to lay down my underpaper, and I might stick a few of these rings on, and then I'll be back to start spritzing and dripping and dribbling and spraying and all of those things to create some backgrounds. Shades of blues and browns and greys I've got on the mat today. Turquoises occasionally, because that's what's making me happy at the moment in January. It's January still now. It might be February when you get to see this. I'm not sure how many episodes in we are. But let's get ready to spray. To play with spray. Back in a sec. Okay, away we go. Paper covering everything. I've even got it going up the back wall to try and protect the craft supplies that are over there. And I've mostly got Distress Sprays over here where I'm grabbing things, and Distress Oxide Sprays over here when I'm grabbing things. The mica ones are kind of sitting to one side, waiting to see whether they're going to be pulled into action or not. Just glancing at a few more colours and wondering whether we might want those around as well. So one of my tips for this is don't start with the oxides. Once you've got oxides down, everything will turn chalky. So if you put down an oxide and then you put down distress spray, your distress spray is immediately going to turn chalky. So I tend to start with the translucents, and I'm going to start with some broken china. Other thing worth having around is a piece of kitchen paper, so that you can occasionally just catch the nozzle. It's less important with the inks than it is with the Distress Oxides. When you've got Distress Oxides, you really want to try and keep that nozzle clear. So that was broken china. I think I want a little bit of hickory smoke, and just put that down in some places. Just getting a nice... So I'm gonna start in the grey blues. Well, broken china is more of a turquoise really. Let's have some speckled egg because it's a favourite, and it has a sort of softness to it that I like. So you can already see, as we've discussed in previous videos, going down over a different paper surface will give you slightly different colourways. I now want to put in, let's see, maybe just rather than spritzing this one, I'm going to pull out the spray nozzle, unscrew, pull it out, and just drip on some little spots of, what is this? Salvaged patina. Salvaged patina if you come from the UK. There we go. And then maybe a little bit of water spritzing, because it's water that is going to make things interesting. So with these, you can let the patterns just happen, or you can start to pick them up and roll them around. You'll get different kinds of things happening on. A little bit of drippage is always a lovely thing. So this sketchbook paper is really very floppy. You can see immediately that tag is on the move, whereas this manila tag is much more sturdy and stable. I love the patterns that are forming on that sheeny sort of surface, where this is the white card that sucked it in. Just have a look at that. That's sucked in those ink colours. They're sinking in. It's a really interesting mottled effect, but it's in no way the kind of playtime that I've got on this tag. This one, I'm going to add a little bit more water, but as you can see, they also are sinking in. At this point, I might just do a quick little dry across. If there are pools of ink appearing in places where it just feels too much, it very often happens at the tops and the bottoms because the paper is going to roll up, curl up under moisture. I just want to capture a few of those patterns before I go on to add some more little bits of spritz and flicking. So just allowing those pigments to dry a little bit into the papers, and again you can see very different effects. Really enjoying these spatters here. Let me come in a little bit so that you can see some of what I'm talking about. Trying to keep these ink spray bottles so that they're not casting shadows, but as I'm playing, I'm picking things up and putting them down again, because that's what I enjoy. I enjoy working at pace without too much time to think, because thinking, you start judging, you start trying for things, which means you miss out on all those delicious happy accidents. So far this is all Distress inks, so it's all translucent. Oh, these two in the middle I'm really enjoying. The white card on the outer sides, not so much at the moment. So my Distress Oxides obviously need a good shake in order to get that powdery, chalky loveliness up off the bottom. You can hear the mixing bowl going in there, and that's what gives us that lovely chalky impact. What have we got here? Lost Shadow, oh, which is a beautiful icy grey, really pale. So this one, you can see, will sit on top of any ink that is already dry. Where it's hitting moisture, it will spread out. So if it gets in touch with some of those other ones I've already put down, we'll get a different kind of spreading. And the real oxide effect in these oxide sprays is activated with water. They get chalkier and chalkier the more water you add. So just watch out for, if you feel like you're not getting the full chalky impact, add a little bit of water to the mix and see what you get. So I'm enjoying almost everything. That mottled one is really interesting. I wonder if I went on a different side of the paper. Ah, I see. This is the sketchbook paper, this is the cheap white card, and again you can see the difference between both how those pigments are showing up and also how they're sinking into the paper. I may now banish any further pieces of this white card because it's just not giving me an effect that I'm particularly interested in. Grand. I might give this a little touch of something a bit darker. I'm looking at walnut stain in the Oxide, but I'm also looking at the hickory smoke. Instead of spritzed, maybe flicked is going to give me some definition on those. So yeah, I'll let this one finish off. Almost knocked over the bottle there. So I'm just dipping back into the bottle to get some ink onto the end of the nozzle, and then I'm tapping quite hard to flick little drops onto the surfaces. And we might go with, I'm wondering about adding some shimmer. I don't think I'm ready for shimmer just yet. I might go with a little bit of this frayed burlap. Frayed burlap is really interesting in the Oxide because the fluid has the beautiful grey brown of frayed burlap. The pigment picks up really interesting sort of greeny, bronzy, extraordinary sort of. I'm going to have a quick little spritz just to get a little bit of spatter of that. And you can see that's changing, that's warmed things up. That really has given us a warmth to what's going on. And I'm going to do some droplets of it, just to bring the changes. And so for that one, I do want to add some water just to let that funky frayed burlap really do its thing as it activates with the water and gets chalky. So I've got some lovely spattery patterns happening here, lovely kind of randomness. And in a minute I'm going to take some kitchen towel and just pick up in some places where there's a bit too much going on, down in this corner. Or we could try spritzing it and let it travel, but then I'm gonna not let it run away with itself. So yeah, my favourites are definitely happening towards this end of the paper. Let's let that go. And yeah, I'm gonna dive in and do a little bit of heat setting. Again, just to capture some of these formulations before they vanish on me. Really, there are some interesting formulations on this cheap sketchbook paper. Quite interesting things going on. And it's a different thing, but for my money, the sheen of the surface of that manila tag is the one that's giving me the joy. The real joy of variation. There's a beautiful bronziness to that. I think it probably had a bit more broken china than some of the others got hold of, but I think in a minute you'll start to see that frayed burlap kind of oddness, and it's an exciting oddness. I'm going to, oh, it's vintage, it's the Salvaged Patina that is, there we go, a couple of flicks of that onto these ones that are a bit more mottled. Doesn't need much on here. Just going to add a little echo of it down below and a little bit onto here. But as I say, I don't think I'm going to, in our next batch of spraying, I don't think I'm going to bother any longer with this white card. It's going to respond much better to having things like paint on it, because if I give it a coat of gesso beforehand, for instance, that will change again how the inks take on it. In fact, why don't we do that? While those are drying, let's grab a piece of the white card. In fact, let's grab, I think there are a couple more of them, only two. And over those, I'm going to very quickly put some gesso, if I can find it. I'll put it somewhere else. So I could go clear gesso, I could go white gesso. Gesso, officially in the art world, is for preparing a painting surface. So many canvases these days that you buy are pre-gessoed, ready to receive your art mediums. It stops paint from sinking into the canvas and wasting paint. So gesso has been a key ingredient for artists for centuries already. It's your basic primer, I guess, for canvas. But that means it's also really good on paper surfaces that are just not behaving in quite the way you might want, or doing something to suck in lots of your precious art product when you feel like that's not what you want to have happen. So let's see, we'll be able to compare how well, you see, now that it's drying and with those chalky bits of, it's an interesting effect as well. It's not horrible, it's just not what I'm used to. It's a lovely game. You'll notice that I did actually end up sticking rings onto all the tags, just because I thought if I do decide I want a contrasting colour afterwards, I could always stick that on later, stick another one over the top. But it will be really hard to go back and create something that tones in perfectly with what's gone on the tag. So messy mixed medias, sprayed backgrounds. I'm just going to lean those up against the back wall to dry. Pop them there. Grand. I'll leave the gessoed ones to dry for a bit longer before we put them in the mix. Let's grab ourselves another 4. Manila, sketchbook. Let's go with that. Got the Manila in the same position as last time. Right, let's start with a different undertone. What have we got? Ooh, Uncharted Marin is quite a dark place to start. Let's start with the Salvaged Patina. Spritz. So that's going to give us something quite nice and light and airy. Let's go a little bit rusty. I've got rusty Hinge here, and that's going to give us some real burnished rusty tones. To that I might add a bit of, have I got vintage photo here? How can I not have vintage photo here? So for me, rusty Hinge by itself can really get a bit orange, but as soon as I mix it with some vintage photo, I start to get happier. Into that I might put, I'm just fishing for more colours, I'm going to put a little bit of the old paper Oxide, and I'm also going to, with this Patina, pop some Speckled egg to just soften that green with a bit of the Speckled egg. My Speckled egg is almost empty. Can you guess why? So that's giving me a sort of greyness, and then some of the magic is going to happen because I flick some water in. That's going to start those inks moving around on the surface, and again they'll move differently according to the surface that they're on. I hope that the camera is close enough for you to see how that water starts to impact. And then with the old paper, I'm going to do a little bit of flicking from here, and I'm gonna slightly aim where it's headed, so it's not heading over the turquoise necessarily. It's going to hit those rusty brown patches, and just look at it go. Look at it go. So that is hitting moisture. I haven't this time dried between layers, so this oxide is hitting moisture. It's immediately going to start its beautiful journey into chalkiness. And I'm also going to add some of the Speckled egg oxide, also nearly empty. Also, guess why? And this I might do a couple of little spritzes. Again, that's interacting with those browns to create really quite interesting things. And I'm going to do a couple of flicks. Then I'm going to dry a bit and do some more flicks, because these flicks will interact differently depending on how dry the surface is that they go into. Again, I'm just having a look around the edges to see if ink is pooling in a way that I'm uninterested in. going to pick up a little bit of that, a little bit of that. And you can see how quickly you can just grab yourself some really funky backgrounds to play on. So as well as drying with the heat tool, I'm picking up additional moisture here. I don't want to get it completely dry because I do still want a bit of interactivity when I add some tumbled glass oxide. Again, I'm going to aim to hit some of those areas where it's going to be a good contrast with the ink colour that's already there. And because it's still wet, you can see again, it's spreading out. If I wait a bit longer, you'll get much less spread. Just wondering about maybe a couple of flicks of the rusty hinge, just to pick up that rustiness, and those I'm going to aim at the rustier areas because that's where I want that happening, with a couple of contrasting ones. There we go. Might almost be done with these because they're making me pretty happy. But you can see on places where you've had a big spritz of oxide, that translucence tends to vanish. The oxides will always, I don't want to say outperform, that's not what it is, overpower. Chalkiness wins over translucence. Once chalkiness is in the mix, chalkiness is going to be the leader of the pack, as it were. So again, I'm just dabbing back, and you can see that as I dab back, it hits the oxide below and just shifts and changes a little bit. Quite enjoying those paler patches here, but I do want a little more colour on them, I think. There's something a bit too bold about what's going on there. The others have a warmer tone to them. That's partly because the manila one is a warmer tone underneath already, and where you've got translucent inks, that's going to make a difference. Just going to pick that up. Well, I might leave those as they are. Maybe it's vintage photo. Where's the vintage photo? I just want a little bit more my old friend vintage photo on there, and I'm immediately going to add in some little flicks of the old paper. Now that things are a bit drier, I might add a couple of flicks of that in other places. Just to add detail and interest. I like the tumbled glass for this as well. Really pale oxides are brilliant for just adding a little highlight. Good, so I think we'll do one more foursome. I'll let those dry. Up against the back wall of rolled paper. Let's bring back in our 2 pieces of gessoed card this time, and let's maybe go with 2 manila, because we've got lots of the cheap sketchbook paper, because there were 3 in that last lot and I think 2 in the first lot. So let's use the gessoed white card. So this is the gessoed surface. That's pretty much dry now. I might give it a quick blast just for a fair comparison. I think I'm back in a sort of bluish greyish sort of feeling. I might try and remember to pop in some oxide this time. So let's start with weathered wood. Weathered wood is a nice, just sort of off grey. It's got some bluish tones to it, and then maybe some little bits of broken china. Little bits, she says. I doubt it comes. So at the moment you can see very clear spray patterns. If I want to break that up a little bit, straight in with some water. And now you can see on that gessoed tag, there's a whole different kind of thing going on. I've got playtime, I've got moving time, compared to the one where it just sank straight in. That gesso is making a world of difference to how the inks turn up and what they'll do. Oh, look at that. Did you see that run of dribble? Right, I might catch some of this straight away. I'm quite enjoying quite a lot of these patterns that are appearing. Love that running down the tag. Less keen on that bit up there. Love this running down the tag. Just encourage that as I dry it. Keep it tipping, keep it moving into those rivulets of colour. And gradually it'll dry into those patterns. That one, side to side maybe. Let that ink run and play and move over the gesso, which it can now. Magic. What have we got going on here? Let's let that one go for a little run. Let's encourage that one back up the page. And just tilting, playing, letting things form and shift. Take those out. Something a bit paler over there. Even, did you see that? Even the paper towel is creating really great texture over that gesso. That's giving me extra texture as I dab away. Very cool. Very, very cool. Moral of the story is, when you've got cheap card, make sure you've got some gesso. You can do the same with acrylic paint, probably dilute it a little bit. Acrylic paint will give you also a different surface to paint on. So if you've not got gesso, don't panic. That's not the end of the world. I think I want a little bit of walnut stain into the mix now. And there's no need to shake that. It's a stain spray. I'm going for a little bit of drama with some dark flicks of that walnut stain. And just in places, I'll give it a spritz of water so that something else can happen with it. Give it a little bit of encouragement to go journeying. And then the other thing I might spritz over it is a little bit of speckled egg, because that's going to mix and move. So instead of just water, which will move it, this is going to give it a little bit of different colour. Oh, really nearly at the end of the speckled egg. Pretty sure I've got another one on standby. With a colour like speckled egg, I tend to make sure I'm not going to completely run out. So just letting that do some interesting things. And another thing is, it can be really tempting to continue to fiddle like I'm doing right now, but it's also just lovely to watch, because it will change. If you just let it dry, it's going to continue spreading, moving, shifting. And as you see certain things developing, you can encourage them or discourage them. Clearly, as I'm doing that, I need to do it in silence to understand what I want. And again, it's about playing. There's no right or wrong to this. I didn't know how these were going to look when I started. I didn't have a plan for them. I just had an itch to make a bit of mixed media mess. Let's get some speckled egg oxide into the mix. I want a little bit of fun into those liquid bits, and a little bit of spatter onto the drier bits that's going to just stay put. Just let those things play. And I might go with something a little more full on. What else have we got here? Where's my... Oh, sorry, just in my storage, my inks are separate from my oxides, and I've just discovered an ink hiding amongst the oxides. So this is the Salvaged Patina Oxide, and I might, well, you see, the danger is if you start spritzing this, as I say, the oxide is going to take over. So I'm going to try and be quite directed about making it stay localized, to start with at any rate. I might in the end decide that it's so glorious I want it everywhere. But then I'm going to do a couple of splats of it as well. Again, just aiming for areas where there's not very much going on. Areas where I want a bit more detail and a bit more interest. You can really see the difference here between the gessoed white backgrounds and the warmth of the manila tags, the difference it makes to the colour of what's going on underneath. I think I want a bit of, have I got my lost shadow still? Yeah, there it is. A bit of lost shadow oxide, because I want to grey things up. In fact, this brown, it's a good contrast, but there's a bit too much of it at the moment. So I'm just going to knock back some of those brown splotches, which are still drying because I haven't run the heat tool at anything yet. And the other key with this is, if you're not happy yet, keep going. Things will change as you play. Different ideas will come forward and you'll go, oh, I know what I need now. I need less brown and more blue, or I need more green, I need more rust. I'm quite tempted by the rust. The rust is drying beautifully over there. So we might let ourselves get rusty again, or we might stick to something a bit different. So again, I'm just aiming for places where I can see there's a sort of a lack of interest, really. What else have we got here? I'm just looking at the colours I've got and seeing what I want to play with. Maybe it's a bit of water again. Maybe it's a bit of spritz and flick to just encourage some playtime. And then what I might do, I have a feeling the water is going to really strongly lift off the gesso. So where it's gessoed, I think we're going to get quite white patches back. Yes, nice. And I'm going to pick that up and just get whatever's there. Give it a quick blast so I can come back in with some final detailing. So mostly dry. Should we go for a little bit of shimmer? Just having a look at the shimmers I've got out. Don't want that one. This is Empty Tomb. Again, you want to try and get the mixing ball going. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Sometimes it's stuck in a little corner, in which case just really vigorous shaking. So this time it's not chalky pigment I'm picking up. It's the sparkling mica powders that are in this. Not wrong about there being a mixing ball in these, am I? Yeah, listen, there it goes. That one's got its mixing ball going. Where are you caught? Bash, bash, bash. I think I'm picking up powder anyway, just by the sheer vigour of... Ah, there it was, did you hear? There we go. And with this again, because I don't want to overwhelm with shimmer. Again, once you've got shimmer on the go, it will be the thing that wins. So I like to start with just sort of some spots and spatters, which again I can then apply some water to. Even sometimes with a brush, I'll do it just to get a little bit of movement in those shimmer patches. You won't see the shimmer at the moment because A, I'm not holding it up to the light, and B, it's still wet, it's still doing its thing. And then something I quite like doing, if I've got lots of liquid in one place and lots of shimmer, and there's somewhere I'd like it, I'll just flip it over and print where I'd like to share some of that shimmer. And again, it's going to change the pattern of the fluid. Ooh, that's doing really nice things. Just want to soften this bit here, and I'm sort of thinking it'd be quite nice to have some down here, so I'm taking this heavy bit here and I'm just going to print onto there with it, so it softens in both places. I do want to just catch some of this because it's really delicious. Let it run, let it move. You can still see there's a difference between how it takes over the manila surface and how it takes over these other surfaces. I sort of want, I'm being drawn back to the rusty hinge just to get some bold accents going on in these. Bold rusty accents just running through them. There's a kind of a magic to the light of that. I am going to come back in and aim some vintage photo in approximately the same places. But you'll notice as that dries, it goes on looking really, really translucent, but anywhere where that has hit an oxide, it will eventually turn chalky as it dries. So yeah, I'm just hitting similar places. And again, I'm going to let that spread a little bit without me interfering too much. I like that over with the shimmer, because if you spend time looking at rust, which I do, you'll notice very often rust has a sort of shimmer to it, a kind of magic where it catches the light, and that can be really exciting to see. I've got speckled egg oxide, and I just want a couple of bits of that around. And because I'm really enjoying the warmth of the two manila ones, I'm going to put in a bit of the old paper, which is kind of a sort of warmish green, onto these two, because that's going to create an illusion of warmth on these two to balance with the others. And it'll also tie us in with some of the other tags that are in the background waiting. Now that train, to me, going past in the valley, sounds really loud, but I don't know if the mic is picking it up or not. You'll let me know if you can hear the little train that goes past a few times a day down at the bottom of the valley. Oh, I'm enjoying that a lot. Enjoying that really very a lot. That's not good English. Oh, I don't like that big splotch that dripped off when I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, there's something really magic about that. I do want to capture a bit of that. I'm not going to fully dry them with the heat tool, but I want to catch a couple of those. I want that bit of rusty hinge to spread out, so I'm actually going to get a finger in there. And now it needs a slightly darker spot in it. Yep. And that back. And of course what it needs right in the middle is a bit of chalkiness. Yep. Quite want to borrow a bit of this rustiness, if it's still wet, onto the edge of here. Not quite this, but must be, because I've just put it there. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's dry. So the shimmer, let's see if we can pick up some of that shimmer. The shimmer and the oxide interact in really interesting ways. So there'll be places where that shimmer gets to hold its own, if you can see the light catching that. And there'll be other places where the chalkiness wins. And it's in the very unpredictability of that quite a lot of the joy actually lies. Is just letting what happens happen and taking delight in the magic of these formulations interacting. Some really interesting shimmer versus chalkiness going on in there as well. And what about this one? Yeah, that tombstone shimmer is really funky through the middle there. Grand. Exciting. And as you reach the drier stage, anything you put on as a sort of final flick is going to hold its own, because it's going over something dry, so it should really be able to stay put. A couple of those. So this is the Salvaged Patina Oxide that's just going on. And again, I'm aiming for places where I can see, you know, we could have a little bit more detail in there. I might go with some old paper as well. Really enjoying the old paper today. It's not one I get out very often, but for some reason it's hitting the mark for me today. It'll be to do with the weather or the changing of the seasons. That'll be the thing that's influencing what I want to do with it. There we go. There we go. So I'm just going to do again a little bit of drying and then let them do a bit of drying. Grand. So as always, I'll be zooming in for some close-ups of these finished. They're backgrounds. They're never finished. They'll appear in tag time one of these days. So yeah, this is messy mixed media backgrounds. Yeah, take a look at the fingers. Always the sign of a good time. A real joy in just playing with your products. Don't have any expectations. Don't judge. Just explore and see what you can get. I'm going to pull these back down and then, as I say, zoom in for a close-up on some of these effects. And what a brilliant way to give yourself really exciting backgrounds to be able to play with another day. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Do hit the thumbs up button if you've enjoyed that. Leave any comments or questions down below. As always, I'll try to leave as much information in the description of the video about what I've been using colours wise and so on and so forth. And yeah, if you haven't already subscribed, please do join us on this creative journey. I love to have your company. Thanks so much for watching, and happy crafting all.